guys, this is Shannon with Nearly Organic Noshing, and today I thought I would do a video on how I take my old jellies and turn them into fruit roll-ups or fruit leather. I know everybody, if you can a lot of jellies, you have some that are sitting in the back of the cabinet from a couple of years ago, and as more produce comes in, you are making fresh and new and you have this old produce. So yeah, you can still use it on toast or whatever you want to use your jams and jellies for. But what I like to do to be able to clear out a bunch of jars and use it up all at one time is to turn it into fruit leather by dehydrating it. And they're delicious. Yes, they have a lot of sugar in them, but if you compare them to what you're getting for your kids at the grocery stores, there's no preservatives. I mean, sugar is the only bad ingredient in your fruit leathers when you do them like this. So I'll take a little bit of extra sugar and have something healthy that I'm feeding to the kids because I know exactly what's in it. And I love them too. They're delicious. So what I did is I've actually got my canner going right now, and I really need to make some space on my canning shelves and rotate some stock. So as I was moving jars around and taking stock of what I had, I started pulling some of my old jars. I have a lot of fig preserves back from 2015. I just made more preserves. I have more on the tree. I have more figs in the freezer. So I went ahead and pulled a bunch of my old fig preserves. I also pulled some grape preserves from muscadines, and I think I pulled some cherry and some like blackberry that I had sweetened with honey instead of sugar. So I have like some blackberry, honey, vanilla preserves. So I'm just gonna show you an easy way to turn them into fruit leather. I don't have anything special. I know that they make these little inserts that you can put on your dehydrator, but all I use is parchment paper. One day I'll get some of those, but for now parchment paper works. So I will flip the camera around and I'll show you exactly how I do it. Hey guys, so I have one of my shelves out of the Excalibur, out of my dehydrator, and all I did is take regular parchment paper, and you want to cut it so that there's airflow all the way around. Don't make the parchment paper cover every single inch. I mean, I have one of these little food grade plastic things on here, and then I just put the parchment paper right in the middle, if you can see that. Let me tilt this just a tiny bit more. Okay, I think that's a little better. Okay, so you have your parchment paper just like this, covering like 3/4. Okay, so the first one I took, this was a blackberry honey. So this is made with blackberries that I picked, and I sweetened it with honey. So I'm gonna just take it, pop the top, make sure I heard it pop. I'm gonna take that and set it to the side. And then I have just like a little mini spatula, and I'm just gonna dump it on here. Okay, so take that, set that to the side, and then just spread it out. Don't go all the way to the edge. You don't want it to overflow, but you can get it pretty close because it might melt just a tiny little bit, but it's not going to ooze all over the place. So, and if you want to do multiple ones on the same, you know, multiple flavors and stuff on the same one, then you can take it and like make it into like little lines like this, and just try and make it relatively thin but even. And it may take a little bit of effort to get it to do that, especially like this. This still has some whole chunks of blackberry in it. So I may have a couple of spots that aren't perfect, but I'm gonna have it on here relatively thin. So this probably shouldn't have been the best one to start with because it is a little bit thick and chunky, not something that's completely smooth. So let me do on the same one, another blackberry so that I don't get it confused as to what I have on each one. I have another blackberry, and this one's a little more liquidy, so I'm gonna dump this one out. This one was another one that I had done. It's older, but it's different. It's not made with honey. And I ground these blackberries up and cooked them down a little bit more. They're not super chunky in this one. So just smooth it out. Try and fill any holes so that when it dehydrates, it'll come off in a sheet. You want it to kind of come off all together. So there are 2 blackberry ones, and I'm just going to slide that in and pull my next one out. Measure out a piece of parchment. And put it down, airflow all the way around. This time I'll do some figs. These are figs from 2015. They're a little bit watery. They're fine. They've been sitting for a little while. So dump these out. And occasionally there's a lump. There's a couple of big figs, and I'm just going to kind of smush those down and form it out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep going through the rest of these. I have more blackberry honey, other blackberry, I have grape, more fig, more blackberry honey, and I'm just going to see how many of the racks I can fill up. And I do have more jams and jellies and preserves that I can cull, and that are from 2014, 2015, that they're still perfectly fine, but I'd really like to make some space on my shelves for the new fresh produce that's going to be going in. And if I can go ahead and get rid of some of this old stuff, then I will, and it'll take up a fraction of the space. Once it's dehydrated, I'll cut it into strips and roll it up and put it into a plastic container or a glass container, and I'll show you that whenever it's complete. But I'm going to go ahead and see how many more of these I can get on, and I'll show you just how many jars I was able to put on here once I'm done. And just another little tip, if something is too soupy, I don't know if you can see that all this is like super liquidy, and it will end up dripping through and getting onto other things. And what you can do is either you can pour it off. I didn't realize it was quite so soupy when I opened it. You can either pour it off or just take paper towels and go all around it and sop up the extra liquid so that it does not drip off and flavor other items. You don't want it to do that. I mean, it might taste good, but then again, it may be some horrible, horrible tasting combination. So just take some paper towels, go along the edge, absorb any extra moisture, and then that way you're putting it in dried out a lot, and it won't have all that extra moisture to try and deal with. Okay guys, I just finished filling this up, and it was just perfect. I literally used the last piece of parchment paper on my last rack. So that ended up turning out really well because I am completely out of parchment paper. I kept forgetting to go get it from the grocery store. So you can see how many pints and quarts and stuff that I have used up here. This whole thing is filled. Let me move all these out of the way. Those will be able to get washed and put back on the shelves. So every shelf has 2 to 3 different kinds in it. So everything is filled up all the way to the top, and it's a mixture of preserves, jellies, butters, sauces, and chutneys. So this will go probably until tomorrow morning, if not really late tonight. These take a while to completely dry out. And yes, like I said previously, there is sugar in this. But when you think about what is in other things, even the organic, you know, little snacks and the treats and the gummies and stuff that you give your kids, there's still other things in them, and they're expensive. So this way I'm able to go through my jams and jellies and preserves and cull out old stuff, still use it, because you can only make so many marinades with what you have. And it also gives you an idea of what you use the most of and what you use the least of. There were no strawberries left over from older preserves. There were very few peach left over, you know, so there was hardly any cherry, just a couple of grapes. So I can tell that we're going through the strawberries, the grapes, and things like that, and we have an overabundance of like the blackberry. Next time I do blackberry, I'm gonna strain them, because one of the issues that the guys had with it is they didn't like the little seeds of the blackberries. So next time I make blackberry, I know what to do, but those little seeds aren't gonna matter when I turn this into fruit leather. So, you know, it's a great snack for the kids. You can take it on the road and you can travel with it, and it's delicious, and it's virtually effort-free. All I had to do is open the jars, put them on the trays, and I'm gonna start the dehydrator. And this is something that kids could help with, and it'd be a great snack for them or for you when you're on the go. Okay, I'm gonna put my front on this and get it started, and I will show you what it looks like whenever everything is complete. Okay guys, I am home on my lunch break today, and I had turned this off before I left for work this morning, about 8 o'clock, and it is about 12:45, 1 o'clock now. When I got home, the first thing I did, I went out and checked on the chickens and then picked some more figs. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out. And like a rectangular or a longer container works better in my opinion for these. You can roll them up and put them in here. So this is what I'm using, just a regular old plastic container, but you can use anything. So I'm gonna take out the first tray. And the one thing cool about using parchment paper is there's no cleanup afterwards unless it drips over. So you know what, let me tilt this just a little bit more so you can see. All right, I think that's actually a little bit better. So have this, and I'm just gonna take my scissors, and yes, you'll probably have to wash your scissors afterwards. They'll probably get a little bit sticky. And if you want to preserve them just like this, then you can take them and you can roll them up in the paper, and then if they don't want to stay, you can either put a rubber band or a piece of tape, and you have a whole roll up. Now this would be too much for one kid. You'd probably want to cut it in half and give them a little bit at the time, but just to save them, this is the way I do it, and then they'll just go right into the container like that. And if you want to eat one, you see that it just peels up so easy when you use parchment paper like this. So these were the tomato chutneys that I had done. This is like a, when I say spicy, not a super spicy, but a very tangy. It had lime, and it's a really good jelly. But it's a chutney that I had made, and it's great for seasoning all kinds of things. So there's like chunks and stuff, and I'll need to tape some of these because they don't want to stay rolled up really tight. So I'll either rubber band them or tape them. But for now, I'm just gonna set them here, and then I'll come back and rubber band them. So here's another one, just going to roll it up and put it into the container. Some of the others that are thinner, let me see. Okay, so this one right here was just fig. I can tell by looking at it that it was fig. So I'll go ahead and just pull one all the way up and show you. okay? Oh, here. So that's how it pulls off, and then you can just cut it into strips or pieces or however you like to give it to the kids, or throw it in a book bag. And I mean, it just takes up no space at all. I guess this would be decent for food storage for a little while. Honestly, I don't know how long this would last. Because there is still a little bit of moisture in it, I'm thinking that eventually it would start to mold. But if you're going on a weekend trip or camping or something like that, it would definitely work for something like that. We have done that many times. And this is just a healthy alternative. You know everything that's in here. It purged out a lot of stock. I'm going to do one more whole dehydrator full tonight. I'll probably start that and let it go through until tomorrow. And go ahead and get rid of some more jellies. I went ahead and pulled another whole box of jellies and preserves and stuff to the side that I can do this way. And I had not done this tomato chutney before, so I wanted to do just one jar of it and taste it and see how it tasted as a fruit leather. And it's delicious. So it turned out really, really well as a fruit leather. So I'm gonna go ahead and just finish separating these. As you can see, you know, they all turned out really, really well. And this one was a apple, I wanna say. I don't know if you can see that. You can see the bits and pieces. This was apple or pear. I can't remember off the top of my head. But you can see all the little bits and pieces. It gives it texture. This one was great, or no, this one was blackberry. Definitely, I can tell that one was blackberry. And so it's not like your typical just fruit roll-ups. There's texture to it, and there's tons of flavor, and much, much better for you and your kids, other than the sugar. If you can get past the sugar, however much sugar you put in your jellies. Some of these were made with just honey. I believe it was this one right here was made with just honey, so it's only natural sugar that's in these. So I'm gonna finish taking these out, taking them apart, bundling them up, and I'll show you what they look like once they're all in the container together. Okay guys, that is what it looks like all rolled up. You don't have to put them on here the way I did them. If it would be easier, you can put them in like spoonfuls and make little round circles. That way you have portion sizes to give the kids, and then you can take the sheets and put them flat in a plastic container, you know, like a casserole dish or one of the big just disposable Betty Crocker plastic containers, and just lay them in sheets and then just peel off a circle at a time. I've done that also when my kids were younger, but this just is a quick way. I just pretty much put, you know, the jars and just did them in strips, but just left enough space that I could cut in between them so that I could put them up into a container. So I will take this, I'll put it up in the cabinet, and well, it'll be a few weeks, you know, probably a couple months before we go through all of it. If you're worried about it starting to mold or mildew, you can always put it into the refrigerator, but I can tell you these things go really fast. Everybody likes them. They have just such great texture and chewiness and flavor to them because it's all that flavor of a preserve in a fruit roll-up. So that's it. That's how I'm gonna go ahead and store it. I'm probably gonna swipe that one right there because it is a tomato chutney, and I had to pull off a piece and try it, and the chunks of the lime that's in there are just oh so good. There's whole chunks of lime rind, and oh, delicious. I'll have to do a video on that that tomato preserve or tomato chutney sometime. So I hope this helps. I hope it gives you a couple of good ideas. I know it's back to school time soon, and this is natural fruit roll-ups that you can do really easy for your kids' lunches. I'm actually gonna take one of these grape ones to Jaden when I head back to work. He's outside right now weed eating, so I think he'd like that as a snack with a big bottle of water to snack on while he's out weed eating. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys, and you're having a wonderful day.